Hello everybody, I'm SnipingIsFun, and I'm finally back after my 3 to 4 week absence of doing videos because I've basically been busy with school and whatnot. I've been on YouTube. You can clearly see that because of comments I've done videos and whatnot, but I haven't been making videos, and now I'm finally back to doing that. And for my 500th video here on YouTube, I'm going to be answering the 15 Nintendo questions that I ask people on Facebook. And you have seen a few other NW Nation members and Nintendo gamers in general, doing that. There's been about 2 or 3 people that have done it so far. I'm not sure. I want to go and answer it myself, and I want to give you my answers to these Nintendo questions. Nintendo fan. Why? I would say I'm a Nintendo fan because I like their franchises. I grew up with their games. I like playing Mario and Zelda and Advance Wars and Golden Sun and Fire Emblem and F-Zero and Star Fox, Kirby and Donkey Kong. I like their franchises. All of their franchises seem to, I don't know, there's just something about their franchises that just, I don't know, I like I grew up with them. That's the major reason why I like Nintendo. I grew up with them and their franchises, and throughout the time of playing their systems, I actually have played newer games from them. Like last year in 2011, I finally played Elite Beat Agents because Game Reviews recommended it to everyone, and that game was out in 2006, and I didn't play it until last year. And I love the game so much. There's just something about Nintendo games that, I don't know, there's just something people would say magical about them, but they're just fun. They're just fun, Yeah, so I'm not saying not all of them are great or anything, but every Nintendo game has something to them. Maybe not all of them are the best, well-designed, well-put-together, made games, but they all have something to them that makes them intriguing in some way, shape, or form to some people. Maybe not to everybody, but to some people. And I'm just a Nintendo fan because I grew up with their games, I love their franchises, and there's just something about their games that I actually like. The first video game system I played, let me think. I know the first 2 systems I played. I don't know which one. I think there was the Game Boy original, the fat gray Game Boy with the green screen, and the Super Nintendo. And I think I originally played the original Game Boy first, and it was a fun experience. I loved those. Were my first 2 systems, and I loved playing them. I was pretty much mainly a Nintendo gamer up until the PlayStation 1 and everything, even though I'm still mainly a Nintendo gamer. But that was when I originally started playing, other systems. But the first 2 systems I actually ever played were, the original Game Boy, the fat brick Game Boy, and the Super Nintendo. I already answered this pretty much in the last question. It said about what was the first Nintendo system I ever played. I said in the last question the original Game Boy and the Super Nintendo was the first 2 Nintendo systems I ever played. And that was, and when that was like, I would say about mid-90s or something like that. I know I got like an original Game Boy, and me and my cousin played that like crazy, especially Mario Land 2, the 6 Golden Coins game. I think we each had our own version of the game, and we switched it back and forth, shared it, and I think she eventually got her own Game Boy or something like that. But we went crazy on that. We both loved playing that and other games that we had on it, but that was probably the major one. And then Super Nintendo, I got that for, I think, my birthday one day, either birthday or Christmas one year. I think it was probably around 1st, 2nd grade or something, I don't know. But it was like in the mid-ish 90s range. I got the Game Boy, I think I got the Game Boy a couple years, I think, before, 1 or 2 years before. But I got that, yeah, most certain I got that before. I'm not certain here, I can't. My memory's not too, remembering all this stuff from back then. The 90s, while I do remember stuff, it's kind of hazy. But I do remember, I think, getting the Game Boy first, and then like a couple years later on down the line, I got the Super Nintendo, and those were the first two Nintendo systems I ever played. And that was about it. Well, I don't remember the exact first Nintendo game I ever played, but the first couple of Nintendo games I ever played, on the Game Boy and Super Nintendo, I just stated that the Super Mario Land 2 6 gold coins, as well as the original Super Mario Land, F-Zero especially. I grew up with F-Zero, playing that on Super Nintendo. I rented Star Fox before. What was it called now? Played Super Mario World, and then what else? I played Mario RPG, but that was later on I think down the line. Not one of my first few I played. I really don't remember like a lot of the games I played. Well, I don't remember the first Nintendo, game I ever played, but the first couple I've ever played were, like I stated before, the Super Mario Land 2 6 gold coins. The original Super Mario Land on the Game Boy, I think, was around the first ones I ever played. F-Zero on the Super Nintendo. I loved F-Zero growing up. Star Fox, I remember renting. Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars, because I never owned an NES. And the first time I ever played the original three Marios and the lost levels and everything was from All-Stars. And Mario RPG, but that was, I think, a little bit later on down the line. Games like that, basically Super Nintendo games, like the most well-known Super Nintendo and Game Boy games. I remember, I remember Kirby, the Kirby's Adventure, or whatever it was on Game Boy. I remember playing that at my cousin's house all the time. I would have to say the Nintendo franchise that has my favorite music would either be F-Zero or Legend of Zelda. I love the music from pretty much both of those games, and I would say if I had to pick one, it would probably be Legend of Zelda. I would say those two are pretty much tied alongside Mario, but I'd say Mario's probably a little bit below Zelda and F-Zero, something like that. But those would probably be my top three. Pokemon would be probably in the fourth one. But all Nintendo games have really good music, and I like a lot of music from Nintendo games. But I'm saying F-Zero and Legend of Zelda are my top two pretty much, and my personal favorites from some of those series. Obviously from F-Zero, Big Blue, and Mute City. I like Dream Chaser. I think that was from F-Zero X. The Sand Ocean theme, Silence. A lot of the typical F-Zero music. And from Legend of Zelda, I'd say majority of my favorite Legend of Zelda music is probably from Ocarina of Time, as much as highly named songs. People would say that's probably one of their favorite in terms of like music from Legend of Zelda. I mean, that was the first ever Legend of Zelda game I got into playing, at least I can recall, and most of my favorite music is pretty much from that one, but that doesn't mean playing Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword, Majora's Mask. There's a lot of music in there, and all of them I typically like. I like the Skyloft theme from Skyward Sword, and the Girahim theme. And then from Ocarina of Time, I like Gerudo Valley is one of my favorite. The Hyrule Field theme from Ocarina of Time. Stuff like that. And from Wind Waker, the main theme from Wind Waker and Dragon Roost Island. like Wind Waker also has a lot of great music too. But that's just a couple of favorites that I can think of off the top of my head at this moment. My favorite video game moment that relates to something Nintendo. Well, I would say basically, just playing with friends and family, like playing the systems. Like, whenever my cousins came over, we played the N64, we played Super Nintendo, we played Game Boy. While we did play, the PS2 and PlayStation 1 and other systems like that, and whenever I played with my friends, sometimes they had, the Sega Genesis and whatnot, those kind of things. There was a lot of Nintendo stuff too. It's just like, I would say my favorite moment with something Nintendo related is whenever I played with family or friends. Like, like I mentioned earlier, my cousin that used to live with me, like when we had that Game Boy problem, we were playing Mario, Land 2, 6 gold coins. We basically playing games with her, playing Super Nintendo with her, when she kept kicking my butt when I wasn't as good at gaming as I pretty much am today, even though I'm not saying I'm great or anything, but, something like that, it's just like, my cousins coming over, we played 64, we played Pokemon Stadium 1, Pokemon Stadium 2, we played a lot of 64, and stuff like that. That's just, I'd say my favorite, game relating to anything Nintendo is just playing with other people. My favorite Nintendo system, it's pretty tough because all the Nintendo systems, all 6 consoles and the handhelds and everything, all Nintendo systems have their own pros and cons. Every Nintendo system practically has something good to them. I would say my top 3 favorite Nintendo systems are the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, and the Nintendo Wii. I like the GameCube a lot, but I'd say that's a very close fourth. And it's not like I'm not counting the NES. It's just that I don't have enough experience with NES to put that on a top list. NES had a ton of great games, but I'm just saying I never owned the NES, never played much of it. Will I want to one day go out and try to buy an NES and play more of the games physical NES cartridges? Sure, that's gonna be happening one day. But as of now, I don't have that much experience with it outside of maybe a few friends or some random person's house that we happen to be at, or something like that from the past, those kind of moments. But yeah, like I said, the Super Nintendo 64 and the Wii are pretty much my top 3 favorites. But if I had to pick one, more so because of nostalgic purposes, I'd probably pick the Super Nintendo. But they all 3 of them have their own perks to them, tons of great games to them. Like with the Wii, there's Skyward Sword and Fire Emblem, GoldenEye, and Donkey Kong, and games like that. And with the 64, there was the Pokemon games, Mario, both Legend of Zelda, stuff like that. And with the Super Nintendo, I had Mario All Stars, F-Zero and stuff like that. They all have something to them that I actually quite like, And I would say those are my top 3. I can't really pick one, but all of them have something good. And when it comes to handhelds, I'd say my favorite Nintendo handheld probably would be between the DS and probably the Game Boy Advance, with the Game Boy original, Game Boy Color kind of being tied, and 3DS is still fairly new, so I can't really judge that one yet until we get a couple more years on it. But so far it's doing pretty good, especially with the games coming out for it, stuff like that.